All right, episode 123. Today we're going to talk about the top things learned from real estate mogul Ryan Serhant. We're going to get started right now.
We're back, baby.
Welcome to the only real estate podcast worth listening to, with your hosts Nick Good, Matt Kelderman, and Brian Force. Combined, they have 26 years of experience and have sold over 1,500 homes. Join them each week as they bring you everything you need to know about real estate. And now, here are your hosts, Nick, Matt, and Brian.
All right, we are back, episode 123, and we're excited to be back because this is the award-winning podcast.
We're now award-winning. Brian doesn't get here and be here and celebrate with us.
Brian's not here today.
Super important.
And so, yeah, we've got a lot of things that we want to share. So first off, thank you if you are tuning in live. Thank you for coming back and rejoining us.
Hi again.
Yeah, we had some a lot of things go on in between. A lot of things going on with that. Some good, some bad, some not so great. But if this is your first time tuning in, first off, welcome. If you're watching live, listening live. If you're watching the replay, listening to the replay. Thank you.
You'll hear this later.
Yep, you will hear this later. And if you're not part of our Facebook group, go over to the only real estate group worth being a part of and come join in on the fun. And go over to iTunes. By the way, Hockey632 left us a review that said, after hunting through some real estate podcasts, I finally found the one for me. The knowledge they have, the fun they're having, the jokes and references they make create such a wonderful listening experience. Thank you guys for doing this podcast and hope you keep continuing on. So Hockey632, we are continuing on just for you.
I love the fact that we can now just like read reviews from people who have names like Hockey632.
That's right.
This show has made it.
That's right. And it's made it because of our sponsors.
Yes.
Right? We've got a new sponsor. But before I go to that new sponsor, Jesse, our favorite sponsor, Mortgage Mike.
Oh, Mikey Mike. Talk to him.
If you are a real estate agent here in Texas, or maybe you're a real estate agent that has a client relocating to Texas and looking to buy here, you need to go connect them with Mortgage Mike. He is with the USA Mortgage, so mortgagemikeoftexas.com, and ask him to give you that Mortgage Mike stamp of approval. You're going to want to make sure that he's taking care of your clients. He's going to make you look like a rock star. I know that, doesn't he have a closing? I think for Joanna, he's telling me.
Oh, yeah, you got another one with Jesse, man. He's got him all over the place.
So you are doing a great job, Mortgage Mike, and I look forward to more of those Mortgage Mike stamp of approvals. And our newest sponsor.
Yeah, who are they?
We are excited about this. Is here locally in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The Homeward Property Management Company, right? So just for full disclosure, myself, Matt Kelderman, Brian Force, we have partnered up with
Dana, who is an amazing. He just threw it to me out of nowhere. I was like, Nick's just over here rocking the intro, and then he's like, I'm going to kick the ball to Kelderman's face. Dana Wynn, she's a really awesome broker here locally that we partner with over in Tarrant County originally for some other stuff, and she has a really kick-ass property management background, really focused on the experience, which I think for all of us, look, let's just be honest. The old way of doing real estate, of just having a website and getting access to a house, if that's how you're still doing it, you're going to get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
So the whole goal of this is to provide the property management space is a dumpster fire of terrible service.
So 100%. And so that's that. Here, I will tell you right now, I did not want to get into the property management game. I have one for our own properties. And when Brian came to us, he's like, man, I think we should start a property management company. My brother and I were like, no, we're out. Absolutely, we're out. And as we started to go down this rabbit hole, we learned, like, look, we can improve the experience from the real estate agent side for referring that, right, to the landlord whom typically gets really pissed off with their property management companies because, look, it's all about communication, right, and even to that tenant, that renter experience. So go over to, is it homewarddfw.com, right, and I will tell you, if you're going to want to tune in next week and go join the only real estate group worth being a part of, because we are going to start a contest here.
Yep.
We've got some cool prizes, and that is a tease. So tune in next week, as well as go join our Facebook group, the only real estate group worth being a part of. So let's dive into it, right? So Matt had the pleasure
It was awesome.
of getting to sit down with old Brian Serhant.
Yeah.
Right. And so we wanted to talk about what you learned from that. Right. He's built a massive business, and I'm actually shocked. We were talking off air here, and I'm actually shocked that some of the things I learned where you're like, this dude, we hold him on this pedestal, but maybe in New York, he's not really. Right.
Yeah.
And we talk about, that's the influence he has.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, because of you guys, the show, maybe the influence that we have here in the Texas market, the DFW market, maybe even a little bit in the U.S. markets. I mean, we were able to take home the Real Producers Magazine cover award.
Yeah.
Right. So I do want to share with you, if you're listening to the podcast on iTunes, you need to go over to YouTube. You need to go to our Facebook page, watch this video because we want to share this with you before we get into what Serhant has shared. Go ahead.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Well, Jordan, thank you for letting me announce the last recipient of the Final Award tonight. And the recipient is Nick Good.
I honestly just want to thank these guys for thinking that tequila shots in the garage in front of a camera and talking about real estate was a really great idea 3 years ago. Because the reality is, we have a podcast now where all we do is talk about the reality of real estate and the stuff that we're kind of grinding through every day. And we think it's pretty cool, so you should check it out. But it's just really cool to do life with these guys, and I sincerely appreciate the opportunity that came from poor decisions. That 3 years later kind of turned into a silly podcast that we're pretty proud of. So.
No, that's good.
And also, I would like to say just one last thing to everybody who talked the whole time. I hope somebody drives slow in front of you on the way home. First off, mad shout out to Jesse on his video editing skills. Dude, just having him there for that was so much fun. When I saw that back today, and I don't know how other people feel watching it, honestly, I don't care. I got pumped.
Yeah.
That's such a cool ass thing to have happen, because as clunky as the speech part of it was, the reality is like that is how this whole thing kind of got going. As silly as the magazine cover was and some of the other stuff we do, like we've had a real opportunity on this show to talk to, we're not nearly as guest heavy as we used to be, right? But we've had an opportunity to talk to CEOs of major companies, talk to, stars of reality TV shows, and all this crazy stuff, all because we all kind of decided that we're in this every day and we're grinding on it and we're getting our asses kicked. And we feel like other agents are complaining and celebrating the same stuff that we're talking about. And we just kind of took the time to put it on camera and then stick with it. And now there's enough people who also take the time to watch this with us that thought we were cool enough to vote us to get a magazine cover, man. It's ridiculous.
Well, and the way that I look at it is how many times you scroll online, and whether it's someone in your marketplace, whether it's us, and you're like, and they're just doing things that I wish I could do.
Yeah.
Right. And let's be real. We were doing the same thing, and we still do things where we see other people are like, man, how is that person getting X, Y, and Z?
Yep.
How did Matt get to sit down with Ryan Serhant? Right. You were been asked that question, and that's because of what a coach of mine, Coach Burt, talks about is becoming a person of interest. And becoming a person of interest is, number one, putting yourself in a position to whether from a content creation part, right? in the beginning, and even now, there's times that this sucks, right? We probably don't put out the best content, probably the best message, right? In the beginning, it definitely wasn't the best quality.
Sure.
And it's just consistently grinding and then upgrading. I mean, Jesse was probably not the best producer, was probably not the best videographer, and in a short period of time of studying and just doing it every single day, he's gotten so much better.
Yep.
And so we want to thank you guys for that,
big time.
Because again, if it weren't for you guys helping us with this, we wouldn't have won that.
Yeah.
And so let's go down a little bit on the Ryan Serhant path.
Yeah.
Right. So you fly up to New York the week of Thanksgiving,
mm-hmm.
and you sit down with him. What was your agenda for that?
It's funny because it turned out to not be what we covered really at all, and that wasn't by design. So I went up there knowing I was not going to talk to him about the mechanics of real estate. Like, how does he sell houses? How does he take listings? What does he say? For a couple of reasons. One, I think the New York market is so incredibly unique in the fact, like we were talking this afternoon with Brian before he took off, you have to really market properties in New York. They're $30 million properties are pieces of art. They're not just houses, right? So your ability to sell and market is way different than a house like here in Plano, where we just take twilight photography and, you know what I mean, and try and make it look better than the other houses and price it appropriately, right? Like, it's a totally different thing. So that part of it I knew was not going to line up. And then just the day-to-day operations, what I really wanted to understand was how did he have time to do all of it in the beginning, right? Because some of the stuff that he revealed, I think people think Ryan Serhant's always kind of been selling houses. When he got that show at Bravo, he had not been doing it for very long, right? Like, it was only 18 months. There was a lot of this, like, where he was just in there working harder than everybody else.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't even know if he had a sale yet. I think he had done some leases.
I don't know exactly where he was at in that. We didn't get into that part. And I know in his first book, Sell It Like Serhant, we were talking about yes, the Newark airport. What he was. Yeah, not good. We're gonna have Brian on from Newark, but we couldn't even figure it out because of the airport. Whatever. So, but I think one of the really cool things about it was being able to sit down with him and realize that we ended up talking so much. I've never talked to a producer at that high of a level who's still producing. I said that, like, I coach with a lot of people, and weirdly, I didn't put this together. None of them are in production, right? I coach with Adam Hergenrother. He has a huge business, but he's not still currently selling real estate. Brian mentors me on a daily basis, but he's, for all intents and purposes, out of production right now, right? Like he hands most of his deals off team. Now, he's still a badass real estate agent. He can step back in at any moment, but he's not dealing with like the ass whipping of the listing appointments, like even Serhant is, right? He tells these really cool stories about how it's still difficult to get listings, right?
And how crazy that he's telling you that in certain parts of town, I mean, he's struggling to even win when the dude's probably the number one guy on $1 Million Listing New York, probably, more likable, maybe.
You just hit on like three things. You talk about being probably the biggest person on $1 Million Listing. He made that opportunity for himself. He was talking about how, when he finally got down to the final cuts and they were down 3,000, 1,000, there were other huge brokers who were like, this is in the bag. And he just outworked them. He got his show, his marriage show with his wife and stuff, because he just kept pestering them with show ideas. And they're finally like, let's just give this guy a fucking other show so he'll leave us the hell alone. Right. He even says, he's like, I'm staying on $1 Million Listing until they cancel it. I'm not leaving that show at all. He understands the influence that comes from that.
Let's kind of unpack that, because there's there's Madison Hildebrand that was on the first $1 Million Listing. He was $1 Million Listing LA, right? Mm-hmm. Or wasn't that the first one?
I don't know
whatever it was, right? He's in Los Angeles and Orange County. And if you remember, that dude would come in and do little guest appearances here locally, because he actually went to Plano High School.
Okay, I didn't know that.
But he left the show, and no one has really taken it to the next level the way Ryan Serhant has, or Tarek. Mm-hmm. How he took his show and really has built a brand around that. Ryan did that and sees that it's all about the distribution of content and media, right?
Yes. And here's the other thing that is very similar in both of the conversations with both of those guys. Not only do they both make their own opportunity, because Tarek tells a very similar story of just like getting himself on the show. They both are really driven in the sense that like they were both immediately personable. Ryan Serhant walks off the elevator and is like, Matt from Texas. Like, there was like, it seems like such a simple thing, but he was immediately putting me at ease, which was, I'm sure he realizes people get nervous in the room with him, right? Or his job is to
Maybe
be
he
that
was
attractive
nervous to meet you.
I'm sure that's what it was.
Award-winning magazine.
Like, those guys have been on a magazine cover. Yeah, exactly. That's what happened. So it was like, even him walking into the room, there's an immediate charisma to them that you can tell, like, oh, these guys just fucking get connection on a pro level, right? I talk on the show all the time how, like, my one skill set is connecting with people. When people walk in a room and make me feel like kind of buzzy, like that's how I felt when he walked in. He made you feel really relaxed.
Did he digest a little bit more about the content creation side? Because again, that's what it's all. If he's staying on that show until they kick him off, if he's pestering producers to him and his wife, it's still about being there in that media, which is going to get him, more $30 million listings. Or I believe that his brokerage, Serhant, is expanding. Right. So what does that?
He's
also
already in a couple of places. Isn't he in LA? And
I want to say he also is opening here in Dallas.
Is he really?
I thought so.
Yeah.
That was at least some of the rumors of that. But from that, that also helps him, I'm sure, get real estate agents. I mean, You talked about his company opened in 2020.
Yeah. So they launched the brokerage last year during COVID, which he said he was obviously really nervous about that, not knowing how New York City was going to react to it. They locked down and not when they were going to, New York City was and may still be a pretty tough real estate market, just because of some of the laws they enacted. So it was that was the point where he started his own brokerage. And he said it was 3 people. It was 3 people 18, 19 months ago. And they're at 177 agents and staff now, which is...
It's insane.
And look, I understand people are going to be like, well, of course, he's got a TV show and people just want to work for him, right? Like, I can tell you what I do know about team building. People ain't going to work for you very long if they ain't making any money. They don't give a shit about that. Well, if they're not paying their bills, right?
What's the difference between him and Frederick or him and Josh Altman?
Yeah.
Right? Or Josh Flagg. Like, how did he, if it was that easy from a TV show, then shouldn't
they all have huge?
Shouldn't they all have those huge teams and just be absolutely crushing it? And always being out there in the media. They're not.
And he leads by example too. I don't know if this is exactly his thing, but look, if you follow him on social media, you know his family. His daughter's only a couple of years old, and he was talking about, what did he say, Jesse? He still was doing open houses even after his daughter was born. He just wasn't doing them on Saturdays. He was doing them on Sundays. Right? Like, if you follow social media, you see he's at the office at like 7:30 on Sunday morning getting some shit done. Like, that was the huge difference, was talking to somebody who is still producing even at that level, and then hearing that they still take L's. When he was telling the story about going down, you hinted at it earlier, like, he's in Soho, and I don't know everything about New York, so people are from New York, don't rip me if I get this wrong, but like, he goes down to Fifth Avenue, and it's like, sometimes it's hard for him to get listings down there because they're like, your office is up in Soho and you're brand new. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like, just go back to Soho, right? You don't come down here on Fifth Avenue, or I know this block perfect. Everybody sells everything on just this block, right? Because it's just such a unique real estate market. So he still has places where he goes. It'd be the same thing if I rolled into Highland Park and I went first and Allie Beth Allman went after me. Like, it'd be the same thing. Like, he still deals with the same shit.
Yeah.
And so that was one, it was just kind of like, almost like, oh, thank God. Because in my eyes, it looks like you just walk into a living room and like, you see what I do? Yeah. Sign this shit and let's roll. You know?
It just shows up. He's like, okay, I made my appearance. My assistant's going to have you sign the listing paper.
Yeah.
No, like, and I mean, look, that speaks volume, because how many of us, let's be real, everyone in this room, because it is us, maybe not so much Kelderman, but at times we're not doing open houses. Right?
No.
So it goes back to where he's still staying. And one of our mentors, Brian Crothers, he wrote a book called Building an Empire. Talks about it. It's more for the network marketing side of businesses. But he talked about how, top producers should always stay in lead generation mode. And number one is we always, as a business owner, especially in the real estate business, we always want that coveted non-producer title, which makes zero sense. I fall in that trap, by the way, where I'm like, I haven't done a deal in 5 years. And I wear it like a badge of honor, but in reality, that actually hurts me a little bit, probably a lot of it.
I could see it could disconnect you from the process for some people.
Yes, and where I'm trying to advise, or maybe I'm not keeping as close of a pulse on the market. And the second thing is when you're not in that producing agent role anymore, like your disposable income better be up there, because your dollar per hour activities is now less.
And you better have the right mindset to rely on others for your income, because that's the other thing. At that point, you are like, that's the thing about, and I've never fully been the boss. For the short period of time I was a CEO of Herd Group, I was just nosediving the shit out of that thing. But I will tell you something about leadership is the more reliant you become on other people for your income, the more you better be a servant leader really quickly. If the idea is just to become a boss, so that way you can all of a sudden make the most money, like I'm gonna tell you right now, it ain't gonna go that way, right? If you're starting a team to get out of production just to earn money off other people's work, I can assure you that's, I mean, how long has it been since you've been in getting out of production, right? Like, how long has that process been? I've known you for a while. It seems like you were still selling when we first met at a pretty high clip.
At a high level, but yeah. And I kind of was maybe I was kind of forced out of production,
sure,
where we had to make room for the talent that we had. I personally, to make this more about us and less about Serhant right now, but I wasn't ready to lead production. Sure. I loved production. I still technically would love to be in it in a day-to-day, in that day-to-day operation, because it's something I can control.
Yeah.
Right. And that may be something that, not knowing Serhant on that personal level, that may be something that he likes as well, because that is more in his control.
100%.
Right. If I'm sending agents out on a buyer's appointment or a listing appointment, they come back and I feel it should be a slam dunk and they don't.
You're going to be thinking the whole time, right? You're thinking the whole time. And I think that's what Serhant was alluding to, because he got into a lot about team culture and stuff too. And it really all came back to leading by example. And more than anything, that's probably why production is such a huge part of what he does, because he's still doing it with everybody, right? Like, he's got agents in his network that I'm sure are really close to the epicenter of what he does and get to learn and see from him and go on appointments with him and those types of things, just like we would do mentoring an agent, right? Like, he's still leading by example every single day. Now, I'm sure his lead generation isn't cold calling New York expireds, but his lead generation is consistently putting out tons of content. His lead generation is consistently driving home a message, right? Like, I'm sure if I read and watched all of his content in the hour I sat down with him, I would have already heard everything.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't think I got some nugget that was like completely he'd never said before. But he did ask at one point about 45 minutes, and he looks at Jesse and I and he's like, "Are you getting anything out of this?" He's like, "I feel like we're just talking." And I was like, that's actually the thing that I wanted. Like, I want to just come in and like just see how you were, and was it really as insane as it looks? And
but you wanted to see if this was real, like what was being portrayed was real, or was it a facade?
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a lot of times, and we've probably seen a lot of it with people and online, that what they put out content wise is really not what they do behind the scenes.
We've had them on this show.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not us, by the way.
No, it ain't us.
Right. And so, what I really took away from when we discussed this is, again, he practices what he preaches, which is huge.
It's huge.
Right. Because how many times, it's again, like we talked about when coaching agents, it's, eventually I would become, if I don't stay in production, which, by the way, I had an athlete call me today on some investment deals. So, I'm still a little bit in production, a little bit. I got to do a little flex.
Those are fun ones. Yeah. I'd take those all day.
Exactly. And so, but eventually, if you're trying to talk to and coach up an agent, they're like, whatever, old person.
Yeah.
When's the last time you ran a listing appointment where the person's unhappy and they woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or, they're just a Debbie Downer,
mm-hmm.
and you're over here, well, did you ask this? Like, no, I didn't fucking ask that question. Like, they were chewing my ass out the whole time and trying to compare me to their third cousin who just got licensed who said they could do it for this.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
yeah.
I like it. From that, he's practicing what he preaches. To go back to the first part, it's still all about the content, right? So He's putting out so much content, YouTube, right? He went from $1 million listing to then also making his vlog on YouTube, which, let's be real, why did he do that? It's to stay in front of more people 100%. And to start capturing their information. Right? Why did he create a coaching program? It's to then get in front of real estate agents and start marketing to them, so that, I'm sure, for future expansion for Serhant or referral deals or whatever it is. Right. And then he's doing the show with his wife, and if he's doing a show with his wife, he's getting in front of more families or more couples.
Yep.
I mean,
it's almost like when athletes go on Dancing with the Stars, right? Like Emmitt Smith was super popular to every football fan, and then he went on Dancing with the Stars, and like every grandma and housewife knew who he was too, right? Like that's very much what I think he's doing with this family part of it. He's getting in front of a whole different group of people. It's really just the one thing I did ask him, he had posted a story on Instagram or something, just a really short 20 seconds where he said he was, if he could have done one thing different in his career, he would have focused on the content, focused on his message through his content almost immediately, right? And this is somebody who says they got on a Bravo show 18 months in, and yet he still thinks he didn't focus on his content and character creation fast enough, right?
Right.
And I asked him about that, and I think, again, to sum up his words a little bit, and just so everybody knows, Jesse and I are going to be cutting up his content over the next week, and we'll post it in the group. So if you're not in the group, make sure you go and join the Only Real Estate group being part of, because we'll post all the nuggets and stuff in there. So I'm just not paraphrasing Ryan Serhant for everybody, because his shit was way better than how I'm giving it back. But there was so much of what he talked about that was just, he was still engaging in every single bit of his business. The content creation, he is still a huge part of that. No more than an hour after Jesse and I left, he was live on Instagram up in his conference room with all 14 of his content creation people. So like it gets to a point where, yes, now I can say it's probably much easier for him, right? I know for a fact he's not sitting there posting his own stories and stuff, right? He's recording and he's sending it to somebody, all of that. That's earned through being consistent over a decade, right? Like, so if you're thinking about that, just start thinking really closely about what you want your brand to be and what your message to be, and start putting effort into that, whatever that is. And who knows what it'll be? It may not be a TV show, but it'll be consistent and it'll be out there for your personal people.
It starts out like everything, right? So it started out with him probably posting, right? Then he learned it, and then he outsourced it. So then that's the leverage piece, and now he's got 14 people. So I'm sure that there's creative people in there that are helping him with coming up with some ideas or how to put it together. Like, again, if you go back and if you go to the Only Real Estate group worth being a part of, or go to the Only Real Estate podcast worth listening to, or go to our YouTube page, right, you'll see it in this whatever minute mark it was where Jesse shared the video, right? Me and you, Matt, Brian, maybe could not have created a decent video of that. No. Right? He had the music playing right. He had the cuts looking good. The quality was great. He sped up at the right times. Right? He included the right shots in there where it got all of our personalities. And so we would not do that. No. But if we needed to try to figure that out to get enough content, all right, you're going to go from that vlog style. You're going to maybe go to Fiverr and have some editors, and it's going to look like somewhat like shit. But you put it out there, there's going to be people that watch it like, holy shit, that person's doing that? Who did that for them?
I look at even just our show, not just when we did it from the garage, when it was like, hey, we had that going on, but when we were like even doing it in the studio, just how we all looked and what we were talking about and kind of how we were taking it. And like, even just you stepping back in and being able, I've tried doing the intro to this show multiple times, and it's always a disaster, right? So it's like, some of it is
scripted.
Some of it is just getting so much better at what you're doing. And I think that's one of the things that any amount of time from a content creation standpoint that you spend really honing your message and dialing in who you want to be and what you want your message to be, it is going to make it a little bit more cohesive and make it a little bit better. And I also don't think it has to be that dialed in all the time. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be genuine. And that's what comes across in Serhant. I did not feel like, and I think the pictures in the video prove it, that I was sitting across from anybody different that I had watched on television, right? Or watched on social media or whatever. That is genuinely, I think, who that dude is all the time. He even talked, man, and we got to cut this part out. Now that I'm thinking about this, so much good shit in that video. He was talking about how when his logo design, and he even obsessed over, there were hundreds of logos, and he finally went back to like the really strong blue, and they were like, don't just do your name. And he's like, not only am I do my name, I'm just going to put a fucking period at the end of it. You know what I mean? Like, and when you walk in, he's got that big blue S, and it's like, they're encouraging you to take a picture. It's just, he understands. And he's also aware, he's like, do I want to put my name on this? What if I do something crazy and this whole thing crumbles and all of these other people are left in the wind because I screwed up and this thing has my name on it, right? Like,
but they're also joining because of him.
Just the way he was thinking about it, though, was so he's it's just like when some agent goes on lab coats and shares their 9 logos and like somebody pick one. He had those same moments, except it was just at a boardroom desk and probably with some Fortune 500 marketing guy.
Yeah.
Right. But it's still the same. He's still obsessed over his logo.
Did y'all, and this is something I don't know, so hopefully y'all talked about this, maybe you didn't. Was there any talk about where the future of real estate is headed from a agency side?
We didn't talk a ton about that. I kind of brought up some of the stuff that's going on with Livian and what we're doing. And very honestly, the time that we had, it just wasn't really focused on that. Right. I do think there's some nuggets in there of how he really thinks the content creation and video aspect is where it's going, but we didn't get into like the actual structure of brokerages and other things he's doing, right? Like obviously being in New York, development's a huge part of everything he's involved in. Whereas like most real estate agents in Dallas, Texas are not involved in development of anything, right? They're just buying and selling houses, right? So I'm sure he's vertically integrated in a lot of ways, more of that platform style type of thing, but we didn't really get into that. No.
What I would love, well, here's the thing. He's also in other marketplaces. So I'd love to see what his take is. And hopefully maybe we can get more and more people tagging him in this so that we can show that, hey, we should have him on the show. Yeah. Whether maybe we fly up to New York and just take this with us and shoot it in his room. Because that boardroom, wherever you were, looked sweet.
Boardroom's sick, dude. He's right at the corner of like West Broadway and something. I don't know. He's over there in Soho. It was awesome though, man. And like, his office up on the 3rd floor, he takes you around, and like they took their Disney boards. They had like all these whiteboards that they took. There were like 8 or 10 of them. They had them all framed and hung up on the 3rd floor.
Oh, that's cool.
And dude, I mean, it was like walking into just any old real estate office, dude. You should, dude. Yeah. It was a really cool, right. It was a really cool vibe. Yeah. I thought about that when I saw it.
All of the stuff you'll see on Matt's vlogs as we put them out.
Yeah. As we start putting them out, man, we're going to chop this thing up.
I mean, look, and with that, you now have that content that will be out in the universe, right? And let's be real, what does that do for people that are watching this more? I mean, look, I'm super jealous. I know Elizabeth and I were talking about it. I mean, Elizabeth loves Serhant, right?
Yeah.
Like she was sitting there like, how the fuck did that happen, right? So again, what does that do from a content perspective? It gives that even more credibility to you, right? Just like the show when we had Armando Montalongo on back in December of 2020.
Last year?
Yeah, last year. This time last year. Right around this time of last year, he jumped on the show.
We need to reshare that one. That video.
Yeah, we definitely need to have it. It was a good one. Because I want to see, actually, I would love to have him back on to see where his mindset is.
I bet he'd do it again.
Remember, because he thought the market was coming crashing.
Yeah, he did.
Right? Especially in the secondary.
He did.
By the way, so far I'm right.
Yeah.
I just want to point that out. So far I'm right. And then even with Tark, it gave us more and more credibility because how many people reached out from that.
That's still to this day our most viewed episode.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, the next one is we've come and still are in talks with even getting someone from Selling Sunset on, right? And so that it's all about that consistency. And then hopefully we get Serhant on, with that relationship with people watching, because it's all about, here's the thing. Why do people do things? It's all about getting the message out there. Yes. It's all still getting on other people's show from a credibility standpoint, right?
So that's what we need you guys to do. We need you to share it out and add all your friends so we look like a super huge deal. And then Riot Serhant's like, I should go on this show.
Yeah,
that's all we need.
Maybe we
award-winning
show. We need to change the intro.
I know we do. We don't have our award in here.
Can we should have had it right here on this chair since Ryan wasn't here.
It's just, we could have just duct taped it right here.
Yes. Be like, I didn't know that was there.
Put it up on the table and leave the camera on the entire time.
Yeah. The other thing was going back again about that award is we still have not come up with a plan because we only got one trophy.
We did. I think what we decided like, because Brian and I are always together, right? Like from an office standpoint. So like, we don't need 3 awards. We figured we'd just like take a really super professional photo shoot with the one award and then like take it to Michael's and get it like framed in some absurd frame. And then whoever wasn't currently in possession of the award got the really sexy picture, which is probably like $500 more than the award is.
Or we just send the award back and just use the photo.
Yeah, we could Photoshop the like Barry holding the award. And
right. So
it belongs to Lady.
It is, actually, Lady deserved that.
That is true.
She put up with our fucking shenanigans.
No shit.
So is there? Look, again, it's you. There's 2 things. One, it's not rocket science.
No.
Right? We just don't do it at a high enough level, or we get analysis paralysis. or we don't like the way that we look or sound, so we're not going to do it there, or it looks like shit, so we're not going to share it out.
Yep.
Right. So we already know that it's about content, that media. Right. We've talked about probably in 2018 where we should view ourselves as a media company.
Yep.
And then secondary, we should be a distribution company. Right. Because that's what he talked.
That's exactly what he talked about. And very honestly, if you would have started doing social media stuff when we started doing the show, you'd be kicking ass at it right now. That's the real, like, this is kind of like working out a little bit. It's one of those things where you're like, I don't want to go to the gym. And then 6 months later, you're like, damn, if I've been going to the gym for the last 6 months when I said I didn't want to go last time, it's the same thing. If you would just start doing, and I mean, you, the real estate agent who's afraid to do it, right? If that person starts putting out some content 6 months from now, it's going to look completely different, right? The type of conversations you're going to have, it look completely different. And I would challenge anybody who's done it with a consistency to say that isn't the way it goes, because it just seems like that's always the way it unfolds. You just start doing it. It looks like shit. It's really embarrassing. Nobody engages with it. You want to take it down. And then over time, people will start just commenting random crap on it. And then it's working from that standpoint, right? Because by the time they're commenting, they've already been watching for a while. That's what I know. And Serhant talks about that a little bit, of just how much of it has nothing to do with even people engaging. It's just more about how much, and this wasn't in our conversation, this is just what he talks about on his other blog stuff. It's not so much about the engagement you get. It's just about staying in front of people and top of mind. And that's, for me, that's always what it's been about, right?
Is there any talks about how we should do this for clients, right? Because one of the things that, even when I see that you're doing the vlog style, what I'm doing with living in McKinney and everything else, what I get afraid of or overly concerned with is, I mean, what would be ideal for me is I would love if I could fit it in and find the right person to make all this content. I would love to drop something every single day.
100%. Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, is a general real estate lead in a system, like if you're sending this out, is that overly doing it? Yeah. Versus like people on YouTube, which is fine. You could drop something every single day. They're going to find it, SEO, whatever. Facebook, perfectly fine. Instagram, Reels, etc.
Yep.
Right? So was there any talks on that? Or is there anything that you've learned within just that Serhant world?
Well, and I think one of the things, the biggest thing is it's about massive. Like if you're posting on Instagram in an ideal world, you're posting like 7 times a day and hashtagging the shit out of everything. And you've got your little professional photo shoot like I went and took, and you're having some quippy quote and hopefully a story that resonates with people, right? Like that's the other thing is each platform people engage with so different. Jesse and I are finding out with YouTube, Matt Kelderman on YouTube, please go subscribe. We don't, like, our content's not long enough for YouTube, right?
It needs to be over 10 minutes.
It needs to be longer. Yeah. And I'm like, shit, like, how are we making it longer, dude? Like, and then the social media stuff, like the Facebook stuff, it's like, you don't want it to be too long for Facebook, but then you also want some shorter stuff that's a little short. It's just, I understand why people get overwhelmed with it. I really do. And don't try and take all of it on. I have been on Facebook, just engaging on Facebook. One, it works great with my age demographic. I'm 42. So Facebook is still super relevant. I know if you're 25, people are like, Facebook's for old folks. I get it, whatever. But that's where I've been. I'm just now branching off into other stuff, right? There's been very little interaction on the other social media stuff we have. So I think if anything, it's just pick one and kind of dive in. And then, like I said, understand what your message you're trying to tell. Even if it's some Grant Cardone style message, which doesn't resonate with me at all. But there are people that it does, right? Like, just be consistent and own it, whatever.
I think it's whatever your personality style.
It's whatever your
right?
personality
is. And don't conform. Don't try to morph yourself into a Cardone. Don't try to morph yourself into.
No, because you'll look like a hack.
Well, even if you did in the beginning, how long can you keep that up?
That's my point.
Or people meet you in real life and like you said, Serhant it's the person that you thought he was. It is.
Yes.
Right. Hopefully, people who meet us say the same thing. They're like, oh, all right. That's not what they see here or what they see or have heard. It's all the same.
Yep.
Right. Not trying to play a character or an image.
Yep.
Right. And I wish Brian was here on this one, because one thing before I get into this question, because I know you didn't ask this, but I want to hear your thoughts on it, and love to hear Serhant's thoughts on it. But if you're not part of our Facebook group, go to the only real estate group worth being a part of, as well as support both of our sponsors. mortgagemike of Texas.com. So Michael DeBacker, let him give you that Mortgage Mike stamp of approval. He gets those loans done super quick. I think he's doing one right now, I think in like 12 days.
He told us yesterday, because we were talking about how we could potentially still get some deals closed before the end of the year. And he said 21-day close as long as not somebody with some crazy situation.
And I think it comes down to appraiser and surveys right now.
It is, but he's like, you still got time to close deals for the end of the year.
Yep. And then homewarddfw.com. So Homeward DFW is a new sponsor, which Matt, Brian, and I own. It is a property management company here in Dallas, Texas. So if you've got investors, right, you want to make sure that you're referring, because I've referred some landlords to some property management companies, and they've come back and they've been pissed, right? And I used to dog on property management companies. So we started one so we could not get dogged on and fix that problem, because a lot of times it's piss poor communication. So go check out Homeward DFW. There will be a contest for agents who send us the most referrals. So tune in for that. But the question that I had, have you been checking out this fucking digital land stuff,
dude? So, and yes, I do wish Brian was here, because I know his head is exploding somewhere in New Jersey right now, wanting to talk about this.
You know, he's listening to this right now.
I know he is. I keep seeing him commenting. Dude, yes, and just as I started to wrap my mind around NFTs and why it matters and how there can be some value there, they throw this shit at me, and this one. Somebody's gonna have to explain it better to me, because I don't get why you would do. What did one just sell for, like 2.3 million or something?
So there's another one. So 2.3, and then I just saw one being shared. LA Adeleke, LA the Realtor is how he goes by. Just shared another one that sold for 4.6 million.
What are we doing?
It's in this decentralized land.
It looks like old Nintendo graphics too. It's not like, I don't understand what the hell is happening.
Yeah, it's in this. So it's in that decentralized, or whatever it's called. Is it Decentraland, or?
Let me see if I can find something.
So whatever it's in. So it's in the metaverse.
Yes.
Right. And as I'm researching this, because I'm like, this is like bragging to people that you've got a supermodel girlfriend, but she's fake. She's not real.
This is the picture of her.
Right. And
look at this thing. This looks like Dr. Seuss got a hold of a digital art package and like what are we doing here?
Yeah, so this
Jesse's gonna share this.
Yeah, digital land right there. So digital land in the metaverse sells. It's a plot of land.
Oh, thank God.
For 2.43 million. And some of the research that I've been doing on this is the thought process is as VR starts coming more and more into play. And is that guy chopping wood? Like, what is he doing over there?
If I just paid $2.4 million for a piece of digital land, I'm sure as shit not cutting my own firewood.
Yeah. So the thought process is as like the metaverse may become the main place to go in VR world, virtual reality world, right? The world is yours, right? And so the thought process is that you're going to see more corporations like, let's call it Gucci. Let's call it Louis Vuitton. Let's call it whatever. What else is out there? Versace, right? You can go into these whatever the stores are, and you could go and try Decentraland. That's the name of Decentraland. You could go try clothes on. You could go try clothes on, try fashion on, and they can ship it to you from there, right?
Okay.
Because they don't have to have a true physical location.
Yeah,
it's kind of how I've been reading about this. I mean, and it's almost feels like Matrix style.
It does. I mean, I guess it doesn't feel like the Matrix. The Matrix, like this whole alternate universe that we're plugged into, living these lives. This just feels like I just don't understand what in the world you're going to do with it. I mean, look, I understand if we're looking at it through artwork or whatever, but the reality is like, maybe just my dumb old man brain can't see a space where we just live in this other world and could actually use this. Sims, exactly. Where we could actually use this, and I just don't get it. If you're owning it as a piece of art or for bragging rights, now we're speaking a language I get. I understand you're doing it for like an emotional reason, but if this is something you think is going to be useful down the road in some online universe, I just get super lost at that left turn.
I don't know. Here's the other question, and we'll ask this in the Facebook group. If we're selling land in Decentraland, is that the name of it?
Decentraland.
Decentraland. Do we need to have a real estate license?
I mean, this guy jogging with the wolf gloves and the super Nike spikes does not look like he sells real estate.
Well, but he's running. He is
running. He just lives.
First of all, those are rollerblades.
Oh, those are rollerblades.
I think those are rollerblades.
Why is he running with rollerblades?
Looks like he's jumping and running.
Yeah, he's jumping and running with rollerblades on.
He's got the Geordie LaForge glasses on.
Yeah, he's got a wolf out like claws and.
All right, what's Brian saying? In the future, digital land. What do we got here? Jesse ghosted for. Digital land will be important as tangible land in regards to our ability to interact with the personalized version of reality created within the metaverse. Becoming disconnected from the network will become akin to dying.
That's hogwash.
But it won't look like The Sims. The early versions are always dumb as fuck.
I still think this is hogwash. I think that people are money laundering to get their $4 million through.
I think it
creates headlines right now. It's all about the content, right? Sure. So like this plot of land sold for 2.43. This other one just sold for 4, and it's like, it's people investing in this that either need to wash some money, right? Or like they just have so much to spend that they want the headlines on it, and they're making a future. They're hedging their bet that Decentraland is going to be. First of all, that's an awful name. Like I'm not going to Decentral.
It's like calling something the something 2000. Yes. Like this is the super printer 2000, just Decentraland. All right.
Yeah. So
I know I sound like just such a crusty old man on this. I just don't get it. I just don't.
But Brian, comment. Do you think you have to have a real estate license to sell this plot of land?
I know I don't think so right now. I think you're safe.
Because if that's the case, then we need to start.
No, just wholesale it.
Or we can go start a virtual reality real estate licensing company.
Yes,
and education company.
Are these some of the things for sale on there, Jesse?
Yeah,
I think this is all in crypto. So it's Ethereum.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So you can get Donald J. Trump land or names for $99,999.
Jesus Christ!
No, yeah.
Fuck.
So Ethereum too, man. It's just all right.
Yeah. So we may need to have an expert on that. If you know an expert,
yeah. If you know somebody who understands stuff, I would actually love to have somebody on the show who really gets us at a high level. So like, hit us up on the show messenger page. Probably don't comment somebody's name, but hit us up directly if you know somebody, because I'd love to. Always comment, but I'm just saying, like, just hit us up with somebody so we can freaking get somebody on the show. I'd love to talk about this more.
I think his name is Brian Force.
Yeah, no.
Here's the thing is I need Force to be able to volley back and forth with somebody on this, because if it's just Nick and I and Force railing for 45 minutes, I can't handle that.
Domain names used to be free.
Domain names did used to be free. See, and this is why I just can't turn Brian's big brain loose on the world, because then it just makes me feel even more confused about where I live now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm happy to be back.
I'm happy to be back. And hey, let's know something. Everybody has now officially done shows together. This is the first time it's just been you and I.
That's right.
It has been me and Brian. It has been Brian and Nick. And now 123 episodes in, it's just Nick and I.
Well, it's been real.
It has been real.
Well, Brian, they are the equivalent of internet land, and people used to think they were dumb.
I know, man. I get it. I know you could absolutely change my mind on this. I feel like this is above my current brain pan capacity.
So go leave us a review on iTunes, 5 stars only. Let us know what you're thinking about this show, right? We're back, episode 123. Go over to our Facebook group, the only real estate group worth being a part of, and go support our sponsors, Mortgage Mike of Texas.com and HomeWardDFW.com.
Jesse, get us out of here, buddy.
Hey, thank you for watching. We truly appreciate it, checking out another episode of the only real estate podcast worth listening to. If you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead, hit that share button, hit that like button, and hit the subscribe button, right? We're dropping more stuff on YouTube constantly. If you're on iTunes, leave us a review, please. We're really, really focused on building up those reviews so we can get more searchable content on there. And if you're on Facebook, like everyone else is, go over and search the only real estate group worth being a part of. You're going to want to go join that group. I'm telling you right now, there's so much gold in there. So go join, share us on YouTube, and leave us that iTunes review. Please go do it right now. We'll see you on the next show.